Hello and welcome to another episode of Pro Tips with Studio Pros. Today we're going to talk about vocal recording technique. Whether you're recording a vocalist or you're recording yourself, these tips will help you make sure that you get the most consistently clean vocal possible. So let's dive right in. So the first step you want to take when recording vocals is making sure that your gain is set correctly. When you set your gain level, you're setting the sensitivity of the preamp in your interface. Basically, an ideal situation would be that at the loudest part of your vocal performance, you're not overloading the preamp and creating distortion, but you also don't want it so quiet that everything is coming in barely making any signal. There's a happy medium in there, and we'll figure out how to set that right now. When you're recording in your DAW, you'll see a waveform come up. A good-looking waveform when recording vocals would look something like this. Notice how the waveform takes up most of the space available to it. This is a healthy waveform. You'll be able to tell if your gain is set incorrectly if you have a waveform that looks either like this, where it was too low and you're introducing too much noise into the signal, or if it looks like this, where you've overdone it and just destroyed the pre. If you have access to a meter while recording going in, you should have at least a few dB of headroom to play with. In a digital recording world, it's not the biggest deal in the world if your gain is set a little too low, but when it's set too high, there's nothing you can really do to restore the information that you've lost once you've clipped the preamp. Personally, when I'm recording vocals, or anything for that matter, I try to keep them as clean as possible, so I do not use any compression or EQ, but a lot of people will do a little compression or a little EQ going in. For compression, try to keep it really light. You don't want to be attenuating any more than a few dB, and I would keep the ratio around 2:1. Anything more than that, you're starting to affect the audio a little bit too much probably. For EQing, you'll probably want to get rid of really low frequencies because they don't make part of the human voice anyway, so it's basically noise that you'd have to take out. A lot of microphones will even have a roll-off switch on them that won't even transmit that data. If you're recording a vocalist, or even some of you yourselves, might prefer to record with certain effects to make it feel a little more real. Some vocalists like reverb. A lot will react well to compression. I've even heard of people singing with auto-tune on the track, which seems like it would be really confusing, but the main idea you want to make the vocalist as comfortable as possible so that you can get an emotional performance out of them. Doesn't matter if your gain settings are perfect and everything's nailing it. If they don't give you an emotional performance, even if you pitch correct the heck out of it, it's not going to sound good. If you're going to be recording other vocalists regularly, it might be a good idea to get some kind of interface that has more than one headphone out. If not, you can buy some kind of box that splits the headphone signal into multiple channels, so you can control the levels of them independently. This way, if the vocalist decides to destroy their ears while they're recording, you don't have to join them on that medical journey. Your ears are important. What matters is your health. Once the song is ready, the levels are all set, your effects have been put on the channel, now it's time to decide how much pre-roll the vocalist wants. Some vocalists will want a whole bar, some vocalists will want 2 bars or 4 bars even. Whatever DAW you use will have settings for this, so make sure you consult with the vocalist before starting recording, or they might feel a little attacked, betrayed. They're very sensitive people, so you gotta be careful. Some of you may have heard of something called the proximity effect. Basically, what this is with microphones, when you get really close, they'll have an increased bass frequency response. This will give you that baseball stadium announcer effect, or a kind of Wizard of Oz effect, which is usually not what we want. We want something really flat and neutral. So don't get too close to the mic, at least 3 inches away, and really you'd want to be about 6 inches away from the microphone when you're recording vocals. Some people spend so much money on microphones and on preamps and on software without even thinking about the room that they're recording in. Your room is probably the most influential part of the vocal recording sound you're going to get. If you're in a tiled bathroom, it's going to sound like you're in a tiled bathroom no matter how many expensive plugins you throw on it. So when you're recording vocals, try to be in a treated room that has a lot of sound absorption. This will make sure that you don't have a lot of reflections of the sound off the wall. We want one source of the sound going into the microphone, and that's it. Something that can help if you don't have the money to treat your entire room is to use a sound absorption shield. This is something that goes behind the microphone, so at least those signals are not coming back to you. It actually sounds pretty good and makes a big difference. Highly recommended. Also, anything that you might have running like air conditioning or a fan. It's been hot here in Santa Monica the past couple days. Or any loud computer peripherals. Try to keep those as quiet as possible because especially if you're recording with a condenser microphone with vocals, that stuff will be picked up on the mic and will be a headache to get rid of later. In studios, you'll find two main types of headphones. You'll find closed back headphones and open back headphones. The big difference is that in closed back headphones, the sound does not escape from the rear of the ear cups, whereas from open back headphones, they do. The obvious advantage to closed back headphones is that when you're recording vocals, you have less bleed from the headphones. Open back headphones are really great for some types of mixing. Basically, they sound more natural across more of the frequency spectrum. But yeah, definitely record with closed back headphones when you're doing vocals. Or any recording, really. You just don't want any bleed to get back into the mic. Try to get rid of a click track later? No fun. Well, we've got all the technical aspects down, but there is one more piece to the puzzle that is probably the hardest to nail down. As I said earlier, we want to be about 6 inches away, but some songs have just far too much dynamic range to be able to rely on one distance from the microphone for the entire song. So here's a recording of me singing Amazing Grace being too close to the microphone. You can hear those lower frequencies are really exaggerated and it sounds pretty much unusable. Here's me singing too far away from the microphone. Here we'll have too much room noise and not enough detail in my voice. How sweet the sound. At just the right distance, we don't have any of that proximity effect, bass frequency enhancing, and we also don't have too much room noise. Perfect balance. I'm making up a version of the song that should never exist just to prove a point here, but it's more of an art than a science as most vocalists are shaking their head around doing all kinds of things anyway. But you get the idea. You want to be able to back away during parts that have a lot more power and get closer during parts that are more intimate. So that's pretty much the idea. Get your gain settings right, use the right headphones, get your room treated, keep a good distance from the microphone, and get the most emotional performance you can out of your vocalist. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. We'll be doing a lot more of these. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, make sure you leave it in a comment below and we will get to it. Thanks again. See you next week.